Hello everypony, I am Critical Thought and welcome to my review of Viva Las Pegasus. The superhero writers, Kevin Burke and Chris Wyatt, are back to bring us another episode this season. Their debut episode, The Times They Are a Changeling, was still entertaining for me despite some missteps with the characters. Here, they attempt to bring a fan-favorite duo from seasons 2 and 4 back for another appearance in the show, as well as provide us with a look at a brand new location that we have only ever heard talked about before. Will they provide us with a satisfying addition to the show's canon, or will they make us yearn for the days of speculation instead? Let's find out. We kick off this episode with a surprise. The map is actually calling for a friendship problem to be solved. We haven't had one of these map episodes in quite a while, but I like the pairing it chooses, as it picks Applejack and Fluttershy to travel to Las Pegasus. We haven't really had an episode that pairs these two together since all the way back in Season 4's Bats, and in that episode they spent the entire time conflicting with each other. It'll be nice to see them having to work together for a change, especially since their elements of harmony have the capacity to clash with each other. Theme. Once arriving in Las Pegasus, AJ and Flutters aren't all that thrilled with the grandiose nature of the city, which, as far as we can see, is just one big giant tourist trap, akin to Las Vegas. I gotta admit though, I'm digging that ponified Chris Angel's Mind Freak poster in the background. It's cool to know that Chris Angel is a thing in Equestria. As they are taking in the sights and sounds of the resort, the owner of the establishment, an Elvis wannabe pony named Gladmane, greets the two. Being a friendship connoisseur, he's very familiar with Twilight and her friends, and he offers to give them a tour of the resort. As the girls are meeting everyone involved with the acrobatics performance, all the ponies they run into praise Gladmane for how much he has helped them advance their careers, with Gladmane humbly shrugging it off, saying that he treats everyone in his establishment like friends. This makes AJ start thinking that there might not be a friendship problem here after all.
I like the folks that come here to have a unique experience.
And we love him for it.
Oh Jesus, what the hell are those? I'm okay with gay or trans ponies being in the show, just for the love of Celestia, don't make them look or talk like that. That's horrifying. After the tour, with the girls thinking the map made a mistake, they are just about to head home when they hear a familiar voice.
I assure you there is nothing more entertaining than the astounding acrobatics in Gladmane's Pony Fantastique. Now, I suppose that might be true if it weren't for the existence and far superiorly entertaining presence of the show-stopping exotic animal act that Pony Fantastique includes.
Those voices sound familiar.
They sure do. Flim and Flam.
However, to their surprise, the two swindling brothers aren't getting along, and are each trying to persuade a group of tourist ponies to see their show instead of their brothers. That's when they realize the shocking truth that the map likely called them here to help Flim and Flam. Applejack doesn't want to help them, given all the damage they have done to the Apple family in the past. Flutters tries to convince her to help, but she refuses to believe that's why the map called them to Las Pegasus, vowing to search the whole resort top to bottom until she finds what she believes to be the actual problem. Meanwhile, Fluttershy decides to sit down with Flim and Flam and talk through their problem, but they aren't willing to talk to each other. As AJ wanders the building, she stumbles across the other performance acts at Gladmane's arguing with each other, realizing their happiness earlier was just a facade they put on while around their boss. Applejack thinks that between the director arguing with the trapeze artist and the animal tamer brothers not on good terms either, she's found two friendship problems to solve and doesn't have to worry about Flim and Flam. She tells Flutters about this later at lunch, and they decide it's best to go ask some questions of the performers to get the whole picture of what's going on. The performer ponies tell AJ that Gladmane is the best friend they have, and that they are really just mad at each other. But the animals involved with each act tell Fluttershy a different story. They tell her that Gladmane has been planting ideas into the heads of the director and trapeze artist that the other wants to steal control of the show, as well as changing the animal tamer's act and making each of them think the other is responsible, and his plan begins to unravel. AJ realizes that as long as Gladmane stays in his employees' good graces, but secretly keeps them fighting with each other behind the scenes, they will be too busy arguing to realize that they would be better off taking their show on the road and leaving Gladmane's resort. They decide they need a plan to trick Gladmane into telling the truth about what he's doing, so Fluttershy coyly suggests that they get the great tricksters Flim and Flam to help. As with all the other ponies that are feuding, turns out Gladmane is responsible for the current hatred between Flim and Flam as well, planting the idea in both of their heads that the other thinks they are the superior sales pony. Fluttershy tells them that he did it because he's scared that the two of them working together could drive him out of his own resort, allowing them to take it over for themselves. And with honest AJ backing her up, who the brothers know would never tell a lie, except for that one time she kind of encouraged one in Season 5, Flim and Flam agree to help her in taking down Gladmane. The brothers' plan involves Flim convincing Gladmane that wealthy businessman, impossibly rich, who is really just Fluttershy wearing a disguise, is looking to steal Flam away for her own resort that she is planning elsewhere on the strip. Angry about the competition, he decides to go over and give her the same treatment he tried to give to AJ and Flutters earlier, pretending like she's his friend, but asks to see Flam in his office before the tour. When Flam gets there, he spills his plan to take over the entire strip to him, and pressures him to stay at his resort instead of siding with Impossibly Rich. Later, during the tour, Flutters in disguise as well as Flam try to get Gladmane to admit he causes rifts between his employees to keep them in line, while AJ and Flim secretly have him broadcasting to the entire resort over the intercom. But in a pretty shocking and welcome swerve, Gladmane doesn't fall for the plan and reveals he knew they were trying to trick him all along. This leaves the four ponies at a loss on how to stop Gladmane and solve the friendship problem. Later, the girls enter Gladmane's office to confront him about his wicked ways, where he gloats about how he outsmarted them and goes on to talk about his master plan more. But he forgets rule number 11 of the Con Man Handbook. Don't turn your back to your enemies when the intercom is next to them.
Oh, no, wait!
Did that sound okay?
Never better!
Turns out, getting caught trying to trick Gladmane was part of the plan all along, as Flim and Flam knew that he wouldn't be able to resist boasting about how he thwarted them, so they used that to their advantage. Hearing the truth from Gladmane himself, the acts all storm out of the building. Finally, we close out this episode revealing that the mission was a success, with AJ and Flutter's cutie marks glowing, and Flim and Flam revealing that they will be taking over the establishment as the new owners, much to the annoyance of AJ. So, what did I think of Viva Las Pegasus? Sadly, I didn't really like this episode. In a place as grand as Las Pegasus, I would have preferred this episode make the location the real star of the show, rather than focusing so much on mostly one-off characters. Gladmane, while being a distinct villain, didn't really have the charisma of Flim and Flam, nor the fearsomeness of someone like Tyrek. He was a little bit more likable than the likes of the Maniac and Suri Polo Mare, but is certainly one of the more forgettable antagonists. Also, if there is a moral here, I didn't catch it. I guess if you really squinted at it, there's something in there about showing kindness to your enemies, but it was tenuous at best. If I have to point out something positive though, I appreciated the swerves in this episode. When AJ goes off in search of another friendship problem, it's very easy to just assume she's being stubborn and will ultimately come to realize that Flim and Flam not getting along is the problem, and she'll just have to deal with it. But we get thrown for a loop when it's revealed that there are more problems here than meets the eye. The other great gotcha moment comes from Gladmane not falling for the trick initially when we fully expect Flim and Flam to be successful, since they have never failed before to con some pony else. However, these things aren't enough to save it and make it worthy of a recommend, so I'm giving it a skip it rating. Especially considering how we will be traveling back to Las Pegasus in a couple seasons for a much better episode. The only thing you'll really be missing is a rare instance of Flim and Flam working with our heroines, but it's still not all that special. As always, I am Critical Thought, and I will see you all in my next video. Never stop thinking critically.
I